Hello everyone, welcome back to On the Fly. Today we're going to be recapping the quarterfinal event of the Women's Olympic Hockey event. So taking a look at the scores from today's game, and this quarterfinal matchups did start off with quite the blowout, an 11-0 for Team Canada over Team Sweden. So in this game, not too much surprise. Everyone sort of expected this to happen, where Canada was going to run away with the game. It was 4-0 after the first, and they kind of just took it from there. And they didn't really give up, right? Canada was a team that isn't going to run up the score very often. In this game, in my opinion at least, they did keep it somewhat civil and only scoring 11, because typically you want to cap it at 10, but you also don't want to show up your opponent, so you have to score some goals every once in a while, and this was sort of one of those times where when you start to win by heavy margins, it's more about giving your opponent the respect, not running up the score 20, 25 to nothing, because it's not what it used to be back in the 1940s, where everything was decided by who scored the most goals, and then there wasn't any playoff brackets. At the time, it was purely based off of score differential in terms of the tiebreakers, and then victoriouses and all this other stuff went into the determiner. But in most circumstances, the end result was who had the best goal differential. And this is sort of where Canada used to struggle, because they didn't like to run up the scores on teams, and they actually lost quite a few Olympics due to that reason. So that's a little fun fact for you there. But in this game, Canada did keep it civil, only beating Sweden by 11-0. And obviously that's an only that's sort of sad, but in the end they could have ran it up a lot more, and they didn't. So good on Team Canada for not showing them up too badly while still collecting the victory. Taking a look at the second game of the day with Switzerland against Russia. So in this game, Switzerland did beat Russia 4-2. We really started to see what the fatigue caused by this COVID outbreak on the Russian team, and it was quite apparent really fast how sort of Russia was starting to be fatigued, especially towards the end of the game. You saw it when Switzerland started to hold that lead. Russia was struggling to push back, because obviously having to be shorthanded already for 4 games, and then this is going to be their 5th game shorthanded. It's starting to take wear on the players, and it is going to be tough, especially when it comes to having to play every single day, or just about every single day. And really the Russian players aren't used to that, especially during the COVID times, because obviously they've been shut down, their leagues have been shut down, and then brought back up, then shut down again. So they've been really starting to struggle in terms of how that COVID is starting to affect them, and they aren't really conditioned for that sort of role, having to play 3 people's ice minutes in the span of 1 game, and then having to do that 4 more times. So in this game, sort of apparent that Russia was not in the conditioning to beat the Swiss, and the Swiss sort of just took it from there. And this will set up the Canada-Switzerland semifinal. And if you remember back to previous games, Canada did beat the Swiss 12-1. And this is going to be most likely another sort of blowout game between Canada and the Swiss yet again, setting up a most likely USA-Canada gold with Finland and Swiss in the bronze, which isn't surprising. That's typically what happens anyway, but obviously at some point there's going to be an upset here, and Canada or the US are going to be dethroned, but I do not believe it is going to be Canada this year, because in my opinion, Finland is pretty much the only team that has a shot at dethroning one of the champion teams, which is basically the big 2 of Canada and the US. But speaking of the 2 teams, let's take a look at how they got to the semifinal rounds, with the US beating the Czechs 4-1. That's right, 4-1 over a Group B team, with the Czech Republic actually staying in it. They were up 1-0 in the second, and then quickly were capitalized by Hillary Knight, making the game 1-1, and then finally 3 goals in the span of about 5 minutes towards the end of the game. And it really was a good game by the Czechs. They kept it in it, but it was definitely trouble for the US. They were having real difficulty scoring, which is obviously not what they're known for. And really the US is going to be a team that is going to score a lot of goals. When they start to struggle on the offensive side, typically it's going to collapse, and that's what tends to happen against Canada, is that they start to push too much offense on, and then Canada will capitalize on that, coming back up the ice and scoring goals. and really it is going to be quite apparent whether or not USA is going to be able to keep going, because obviously they did put up about 40 shots, and it was 20-0 in shots after the first period for the US. So it wasn't necessarily a tight game, but the US did definitely have a little bit of a scare, because obviously when you're losing 1-0 in the second period, and that's like the middle of the second period at that, you are going to be quite scared of what happens next, especially if you lose. But they did come back and they did win the game as they should, pushing them on to the semifinal round, who then will play the winner of the Finland-Japan game. And Finland did take this one 7-1. And once again, another round where, just Finland outplaying a Group B team. And this really shows the Group A disparity between Group A and Group B, because obviously Group A is a way better group, and that's why everyone makes it, as opposed to the Group B teams. But with that being said, 7-1, that's really all that has to be said about this game. Nothing really that surprising happened in it, except 7-1 for Team Finland, which will then set up, of course, USA-Finland, and that's always a good rivalry. Not so much in the start, but when it comes to the semifinal matchups, games get a little bit more tighter, a little bit more antsy, and we are going to see who prevails in this game. Because my opinion is going to come down to one bad penalty. It always seems to. And if someone takes a bad 5-minute board, I believe that will be the difference in this game. And I think if Finland is going to win, they are going to have to definitely shake off what they've been doing. Obviously, they've been struggling in Group A, but if they can sort of take the momentum from the Group B game against Japan and take that into their game against the US, they might actually have a shot at dethroning one of the big two. Taking a look at the schedule for the upcoming semifinal games, we have Canada and Switzerland on February 13th at 11:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then on February 14th, we have USA and Finland coming up at 8:10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So another great day of hockey. Obviously, there was quite a few blowouts, and the Czechs, once again, surprising a lot of people, hanging in there against the Americans, but unfortunately, they are knocked out. And finally, taking a look at the standings from today. So on 5th, Russia, 6th, Japan, 7th, Czechs, 8th for the Swedes, 9th for China, and 10th for Denmark. And of course, the final 4 spots still are to be remained. If you made it this far in the video, thanks for watching. If you'd like to drop a like, if you really liked it, consider subscribing. Tell all your friends, leave a comment down below your thoughts on the quarterfinal action of the Women's Olympic Hockey event. Until next time, see you.